Okay, this video is for Konjunktionen, the conjunctions. In the video, we're going to be talking about coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. So coordinating conjunctions connect clauses or ideas without disrupting word order. And a coordinating conjunction also has a verb that remains in the original position for each clause or sentence. We've had quite a few of these throughout the past couple years, such as aber, denn, oder, sondern, or und. And we've also had some subordinating conjunctions. And the subordinating conjunctions are conjunctions that connect clauses or ideas with disruption to word order. So the verb is moved to the end of the clause, and there are possibilities for subordinate clauses at the beginning of the sentence, and in this case the verb moves in both clauses. And we'll see some examples of that in the next few slides. So on this screen you should also see that there are a lot of subordinating conjunctions listed, such as als ob, bevor, bis, da, damit, das, nachdem, ob, obwohl, seitdem, so dass, während, weil, and wenn. So we should recognize weil for sure, probably also das and ob. And then the two that we're going to be focusing on in this video are als and wenn. More so on wenn, but we'll see both. So just a side note here, als is only used with past tense, and wenn is only used with present tense. So as I said before, we use wenn as when with present tense, and als as when with past tense. Wenn can also be used to express if statements, but this is either done in the present or preterite subjunctive too. So here are a few example sentences. On the wenn side, we have wenn ich zur Schule komme, fahre ich immer mit dem Auto. And you should notice I did mention that when we put a subordinate conjunction at the beginning of the sentence, so with the subordinate clause first, we have two verb moves. So in the first clause, wenn ich zur Schule komme, the verb moves to the end. Immediately after that comma, we have fahre. So our verb has now moved to the beginning of that clause. Another example with wenn is wenn ich reich wäre, würde ich noch arbeiten. All right, so again, we've put the subordinate clause at the front, and we have our verb move to the end of the first clause and to the beginning of the second clause. I used two examples here. The first was an example with present tense, and the second an example with the subjunctive to of the preterite tense. On the right side, we have an als example. So, als ich Kind war, hatte ich mein eigenes Zimmer. So in this sentence, we have just the past tense, in this case preterite, and we again are using the subordinate conjunction, therefore the subordinate clause at the beginning of the sentence, and you'll see both verb moves in this sentence as well. So just to go over the meaning to make sure that everything is clear here, the first sentence on the wenn side means when I come to school, I always drive by car or with the car. The second sentence on the wenn side, we have if I were rich, or if I would be rich, I would still work. And on the right side, we have when I was a child, I had my own room. On this slide, I put two sentences at the top, both very simple sentences, single clause sentences. And the first one is ich trinke viel Wasser. And then the next one, ich habe Durst. So I'm going to give you some examples of how to connect these two sentences with different types of conjunctions. So in our first sentence, the one with mostly red font, I used den, which is one of our coordinating conjunctions. So this is one that should not disrupt the sentence structure. So we'll see, ich trinke viel Wasser, denn ich habe Durst. Both verbs I highlighted in green to indicate that they are regular. They're not changing position here. In the second and third sentences, I used weil, which is a subordinating conjunction, and therefore changes or disrupts the word order. So orange or peach-colored verbs there, those mean that the verbs have been affected by the conjunction. And so we have ich trinke viel Wasser, weil ich Durst habe. And then I moved the subordinating conjunction to the front to be weil ich Durst habe, trinke ich viel Wasser. Okay, I'm going to give you another example using two simple sentences. This time we have ich habe viel Geld and ich kaufe ein neues Auto. So again, I tried to incorporate the sentences using different types of conjunctions and to use them in ways that made sense logically as well. So looking at the first one again with a coordinating conjunction, we have ich kaufe ein neues Auto, denn ich habe viel Geld. And you'll note that the verbs again in green are so because they have not changed position. They were not disrupted by the coordinating conjunction. In the second and third sentences, I used two different conjunctions, but both are subordinating. And so we have ich kaufe ein neues Auto, weil ich viel Geld habe. I'm buying a new car because I have a lot of money. And in our third sentence, wenn ich viel Geld hätte, kaufte ich ein neues Auto. And this time I used wenn, and I used it as an if statement. So this time it's meaning if I had a lot of money, I would buy a new car. Again, using that subordinating clause first, or subordinate clause first, I now have two verb changes, so you'll notice that both verbs are a different color. Okay, the next slide is some practice. So we're going to practice using wenn plus the subjunctive to. I've given you two simple sentences similar to the last two slides. This time we have ich habe mehr Zeit and ich schlafe. All right, so you're supposed to take the verbs in those sentences and first of all put them into subjunctive to of the preterite tense. And then you're supposed to connect the two using a wenn clause. So ich habe mehr Zeit would obviously mean I have more time. And then the next sentence, ich schlafe, meaning I sleep or I am sleeping. So your first goal is to make them say I would have more time and I would sleep. And then somehow connect them using an if statement to make logical sense of the situation. So I'm going to let you pause the video here if you'd like to practice that. And then once you're ready, just press play and you can see the correct or multiple correct answers. All right, so there are four different options that you could have depending on if you decided to put the subordinate clause first or last. So if you did decide to put the subordinate clause first, you could have had wenn ich mehr Zeit hätte, schliefe ich, and that's using schlafen in its subjunctive to preterite form. Or you could have had wenn ich mehr Zeit hätte, würde ich schlafen. And the only difference here is that we've used würde plus the infinitive schlafen. Both are acceptable. The first one would be more for writing or a more formal written situation. The second one would be more for speaking. So most of the time, people use würde plus the infinitive for a lot of other verbs aside from haben and sein. Now, if you decided to put the wenn clause second, you could have had ich würde schlafen, wenn ich mehr Zeit hätte, or ich schliefe, wenn ich mehr Zeit hätte. Now, all of these things mean essentially the same thing, The top two just putting if I had more time first, and then they say I would sleep. The bottom two reading more like I would sleep if I had more time.